Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Seeing that he was so determined, Huo Yuhao didn't persist. If he was the brains and life and soul of the team, Bei Bei was the backbone. He had the utmost respect for his eldest senior. Bei Bei said, "We need to stay as far from Radiant City as possible. Yuhao, when the sky is dark, go out and quickly return. Let's return to the academy and take a look. We want to bring news back, and also take a look at the situation at the front line before we proceed with our next operation." All right. Huo Yuhao had no objections to Bei Bei's suggestion. It was better to stabilize things too. However, he didn't mention that he one other thing to do before he returned. Among everyone, Qiu'er was the only one who was a little unhappy. He said, "Yuhao, let's attack more soul formations in the Sun Moon Empire when we return. We've been greatly drained this time too." Shu Sancha laughed. "Qiu'er, since when have you become a slave to money?" Qiu'er snapped, "It's money. Do you know how many soul cannon shells we've used this time? We even left a defensive soul formation. I feel heartache. It's not easy to manufacture. We don't have the manufacturing ability of the Sun Moon Empire." Bei Bei commented, "Qiu'er is right. When we return, let's not attack Radiant City. We'll mainly attack places where there are soul formations, and try our best to cause destruction. From there, we can improve our abilities." Qiu'er was thinking about gold soul coins, and he muttered to himself, "If only we could rob the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion. If our Tang Sect Soul Engineer Legion can change into human-shaped soul tools too, who's going to be afraid of them?" He. She. Everyone scowled at him. Were they even capable of challenging the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion now? Only Huo Yuhao looked a little pensive. Plundering the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion was definitely not possible. However, they could learn new things if they could obtain a human-shaped soul tool from the Sun Moon Soul Engineer Legion and pass it to Teacher Xian. This would greatly benefit Shrek Academy in their development of human-shaped soul tools in the future. After all, only Huo Yuhao and Nan Qiu'er were equipped with human-shaped soul tools, even though Teacher Xian had managed to create a few. They were used for close combat, and couldn't be replicated. If they couldn't be replicated, they couldn't be mass-produced. This wasn't a good thing. Huo Yuhao was a Class 9 soul engineer himself. He was also curious how the Sun Moon Empire managed to mass-produce human-shaped soul tools. It was important to know that the strength of the Sun Moon Empire's soul engineer legions would rise by another tier now that they had managed to mass-produce human-shaped soul tools. They would be even more difficult to deal with. Everyone continued to rest. When night fell, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong silently left the spectral demiplane and reappeared in the small forest where they had opened the spectral door. The wind was gentle, and the night was extremely quiet. The fragrance of plants lingered in the air, and the buzzing of bugs and chirping of birds could be heard. Huo Yuhao held Tang Wutong's hand as they walked out from the spectral demiplane. They took in a deep breath. The night breeze was refreshing, and they immediately felt invigorated. No matter how safe the spectral demiplane was, it wasn't as comfortable as the Doluo continent. This was where they truly belonged. Huo Yuhao didn't rush to leave, but leaned against a tree. Tang Wutong was a little curious as she looked at him. She asked, "What are you doing?" Huo Yuhao placed his index finger on his lips and gestured to her, "Sh." After this, he called her over with his hand. Tang Wutong walked in front of him, and became even more puzzled. Huo Yuhao pulled her to his side and let her lean on his shoulder. He gently caressed her pinkish-blue hair. He also shared his spiritual world with her using his spiritual detection sharing. Spiritual detection sharing. Tang Wutong had the feeling that Huo Yuhao was acting weirdly. However, her eyes unwittingly opened wide in the next instant. This? His spiritual senses extended without any boundaries. This wasn't very strange. However, joyous and gentle undulations were nourishing her spiritual world within his spiritual senses. There seemed to be countless little living spirits that were telling her how beautiful the world was. They were telling her about themselves. Her spiritual power fused into that ocean of joy, while her spiritual senses also spread outward. It was a beautiful feeling. Tang Wutong's spiritual power wasn't as strong as Huo Yuhao's. This was why she felt it more deeply, as she was immersed in this world. Her own spiritual power was also enhanced amidst this feeling. If it was someone else, Huo Yuhao might not have been able to do this. After all, he couldn't share the minor changes in his spiritual world with anyone else. However, Tang Wutong was different. Their martial souls were compatible, and they even had Haodong power. They were very closely connected. This was why he and Tang Wutong were like a single entity when he completely let go of his body. It was as if they had unleashed the raiment of light and summoned the goddess of light. In this situation, Tang Wutong could clearly sense everything that he sensed. As time passed, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong seemed to fuse with their surroundings. They became a part of the plants around them. If one didn't use their eyes to see, it would be impossible to detect their auras at all. When Tang Wutong reopened her eyes, the sky was already hazily bright. The chirping and buzzing of birds and bugs became much softer. The forest was moist as dew formed. It was dawn. Huo Yuhao opened his eyes along with her. The two of them looked at each other and revealed grins on their faces. They were so telepathic that they didn't need to communicate with words anymore. In just a few hours, Tang Wutong seemed to have completely changed. She improved significantly after her spiritual world completely fused with the world of plants. Cultivating under such a circumstance was equivalent to receiving the help of countless plants. At the same time, their spiritual power was helping the plants too. These plants that cultivated along with them were definitely more likely to become plant-type soul beasts in the future, and develop their own sentience and intelligence. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong took out their dry rations and ate a simple meal. After this, they continued on their journey. Through his observation of the outside world using his spiritual power that was connected to the plants, Huo Yuhao had determined that the surrounding environment was safe. After flying for a while, Tang Wutong revealed a strange look. "Aren't we returning? This place doesn't seem right." The direction they should be taking to return was supposed to be east, but Huo Yuhao was clearly dragging her to the west. Huo Yuhao smiled and said, "I want to give eldest senior a surprise. That's why I didn't mention this earlier. You'll know later." Tang Wutong pursed her lips, but didn't probe further. She shut her eyes and let Huo Yuhao guide her as they flew, and she continued to understand the feeling that those plants gave her last night. Such an enhancement was extremely important to her. She was already a titled Doluo. If she wanted to further improve her cultivation, it was very critical for her to raise her spiritual cultivation. This would definitely speed up the increase of her abilities. They proceeded west and went around Radiant City. Although aerial surveillance soul tools occasionally appeared where they passed, Huo Yuhao would always be able to find them beforehand. His spiritual power was very strong. He was in fact the strongest surveillance soul tool in the world right now. There was no need for him to worry about being found out. They made a round from the west before making one big round and flying towards the south. Undoubtedly, they were getting further and further from Shrek Academy as they flew in this direction. After flying for a good 2 hours, Tang Wutong couldn't help but ask, "Yuhao, what are we going to do?" Huo Yuhao laughed mysteriously and replied, "Do you still remember what happened last night? I want to bring you to the place where I first had that feeling. You'll naturally understand when we get there. We're almost there. Don't be anxious." Another hour passed. Huo Yuhao finally proceeded towards ground level as he held Tang Wutong's hand. Right now, the sky had already turned bright, and the sun was shining very strongly. The temperature in the south was much higher than in the north. Right now, the ground temperature was no longer low. Heat was quickly invading their bodies. However, Huo Yuhao exuded a cool and refreshing aura, dissipating all the heat. Huo Yuhao guided Tang Wutong to the ground and explained the situation. He roughly confirmed their location before he laid down with Tang Wutong. His spiritual senses extended once again, spreading outward. Under the enhancement of the plants, it spread extremely far. Not long afterward, Huo Yuhao stood up. Right now, Tang Wutong had a good idea of what was going on. Huo Yuhao must have had discovered something. Whatever he discovered was undoubtedly very important too. Otherwise, he wouldn't rush here at such a time. He rose up, and didn't use any flying-type soul tools. Huo Yuhao pulled Tang Wutong and quickly proceeded in one direction. Very quickly, a mountain valley appeared within their sights. It should be here. Looking down from the edge of the mountain valley, the cliff seemed rather smooth. Thick blue-silver grass grew everywhere. The refreshing fragrance of grass swept over with the wind. There were many varieties of colorful flowers in this grass. They were beautiful. This ocean of grass and fresh flowers spread all the way into the mountain valley. It felt as if it were embellished with gems. This place is beautiful. Tang Wutong couldn't help but enthuse. Huo Yuhao chortled, yes. It's beautiful. Come, let's go down and have a look. He held onto Tang Wutong as he flew up. This time, they didn't land on the ground again. They relied on their soul power to maintain their altitude. They were only 30 centimeters from the ground, but refused to step on it. How could they bear to step on this blue-silver grass? The more they ventured into the mountain valley, the more refreshing the air became. There was even a slight flowery fragrance. Occasionally, bees and butterflies flew over to feed on nectar and pollinate flowers. It was like a paradise. Very soon, they came to the bottom of the valley. There weren't any tall trees here, but blue-silver grass continued to carpet the entire valley. No soil was exposed at all. Huo Yuhao's eyes were full of bliss as he held Tang Wutong's hand. From the environment here, it seemed like there was a huge possibility that they could find it. Lights flashed in his eyes again. Huo Yuhao's spiritual power extended downward, like water flowing down. This time, he didn't fuse his spiritual power with the plants, but relied solely on his own spiritual power to survey his surroundings. Once his spiritual power spread, the entire mountain valley was under his surveillance. At this moment, the blue-silver grasses, which was originally very calm, started to shake. Following this, patches of grass seemed to sense something. They all spiked up, as if they were pricks. The harmony was replaced by a sinister and hostile aura. They are panicking. Tang Wutong said, stunned. As her spiritual senses were enhanced the previous night, she was currently extremely sensitive to the aura of plants. She believed that Huo Yuhao could also sense what she sensed. However, Huo Yuhao was unmoved. He was silently sensing the hostility coming from the blue-silver grass around him. It was pure hostility. The reason was simple too. This was because Huo Yuhao was snooping around. Pure blue-silver grass didn't possess such an ability. The reason why they were able to react in this manner was because there was something like Huo Yuhao that was spiritually connected to them. This something was even closer to them than Huo Yuhao when he connected with plants. Huo Yuhao laughed. This time, he had truly verified it. The strong hostility that came from the blue-silver grass affected his spiritual detection. However, Huo Yuhao didn't seem to have any reaction to it. He maintained his composure and continued to pour out his spiritual power. Behind him, a dim golden projection started to appear. It had the appearance of the Emperor Beast. At the same time, his Eye of Destiny also opened. The light of destiny gently shone. Huo Yuhao's spiritual power also grew significantly stronger. The hostility of the blue-silver grass was immediately crushed under Huo Yuhao's immense spiritual power. It was also at this moment that Huo Yuhao lifted his head. A streak of gentle white light shot out from his Eye of Destiny. It shot through the air before turning into countless spots of white light. These spots of white light fell from the sky, resembling a light rain. This light rain covered the entire mountain valley. Tang Wutong also basked in this rain. It was very new and comfortable for her. It was a strength that came from fortune. Even though it couldn't change anything directly, it influenced the future. Destiny's adjudication. The valley rapidly quieted down. The blue-silver grass also turned from hard to soft. Everything seemed to turn back to normal. For these plants that could only perform the most basic of functions, their senses were simple and direct, but very acute. The fortune that Huo Yuhao brought upon them and the aura of the emperor beast left them very excited. The hostility that had formed earlier vanished completely. Huo Yuhao smiled. "Senior, why don't you come out to meet me? I don't harbor any ill intentions." Emperor beast. You actually have the aura of the emperor beast. How? A low-pitched voice sounded from afar. It's because she was my lover. Even though Tang Wutong was around, Huo Yuhao still dared to say this. Wang Qiu'er had sacrificed everything for him. So what if she was a soul beast? She would always own a part of his heart. Tang Wutong acted like she didn't hear that. Her expression didn't change, and she even appeared comforted. Such a man was deserving of her love. That voice was silent for a moment. However, your lover has become your ability. Huo Yuhao also went silent. After this, he slowly landed. The blue-silver grass on the ground automatically swayed, and let him sit cross-legged on the ground. Tang Wutong sat down beside him. Huo Yuhao let go of her hand, and there was a change in his expression. A sorrowful look surfaced. He wasn't willing to recall those memories. However, he had no choice if he wanted to help teacher Xiao Ya. He shut his eyes, and Wang Qiu'er appeared in his mind. That handkerchief that was blown by the wind and the ravishing beauty of the goddess of light started surfacing in his memories. "I'm Wang Qiu'er." A cold voice echoed in his mind. It was a low-pitched roar, which was exactly her style when she unleashed her power. Her golden spear formed countless projections in her hand. Her immense strength helped her defeat opponent after opponent. Her cold yet silent gaze was a representation of the warmth in her heart. Beneath her cold exterior, she was actually very passionate and emotional. He was avoiding her, but she was persistent and reluctant. Everything that happened in the past, every scene, every matter, and every item surfaced in Huo Yuhao's mind. It was only at the end, when she burned herself without any hesitation for him and turned into an intense sacrificial flame, that he realized that he had been wrong. Actually, she was already part of his heart, no matter how much he didn't want to admit it. He was heartbroken, completely heartbroken. After her sacrifice, he had not attempted to recall what had happened then. This was because he was afraid. He was really afraid. He was afraid of such pain. Right now, he found it very stifling and difficult to breathe when he was struck by this excruciating pain. Tears had long since covered his face. His entire body was shaking tremendously, and dim golden lights rippled in the air. His sorrow affected the blue-silver grass and flowers around him. They drooped down as if they had withered. They mourned along with him. A dim golden projection slowly became real behind him. The projection walked in front of him and raised a paw, wanting to touch him. However, she didn't do so in the end. She only lowered her head, and her eyes were filled with sorrow and reluctance. At this moment, a thin white palm stretched over, grabbing its front paw. The three-eyed golden lion lifted its head in astonishment, and all she saw was a sincere-looking face. There was a very sad and melancholic look on this face. The three-eyed golden lion nodded at her. The look in its eyes also became much gentler. As golden light flashed, the three-eyed golden lion's projection fused into Tang Wutong's body. Tang Wutong shook a little before she opened her eyes. "Yuhao." A gentle call jolted Huo Yuhao to his senses. He was now covered in tears as he slowly opened his eyes. This voice was too familiar. The coldness and tone of this voice wrenched at his heart. "Qiu'er, I'm sorry." Huo Yuhao sobbed. A hand reached over. It was slender and long. As it pulled at him, Huo Yuhao was lifted from the ground. He was stunned. He saw a pair of cold eyes. It was a familiar coldness and a familiar face. There was also a sense of warmth contained within that coldness. "Qiu'er, Qiu'er." Huo Yuhao was completely stunned. His excruciating pain immediately turned into a wave of emotions. He opened his arms and hugged her tightly. Qiu'er, she was Qiu'er. She leaned into his embrace, and the coldness in her eyes gradually dissipated. What replaced it was satisfaction. It was satisfaction that came from her heart. No sealed strength forced them apart. They hugged tightly just like that. The pain that Huo Yuhao felt in his heart gradually vanished amidst this gentleness. He also radiated more vigor now. Qiu'er, is this really you? Huo Yuhao asked softly. Yes, it's me. In fact, I've always wanted to be with you. Don't be sad. To me, this might actually be the best result. But, Huo Yuhao wanted to say something, but he was caught speechless once again. There are no buts. When I made this choice, I thought that it was the best for us. I fused into your body and became a part of you. No force can separate us anymore. This is what I wanted. Furthermore, the power of my soul and origin fused into the sleeping Dong'er, under the control of the power of destiny. This is why she has both mine and Dong'er's abilities, now that she has recovered her memories. She's a fusion of Dong'er and myself. My soul is in your body, and my abilities are with her. That's why I've never really left you. Yuhao, do you know how happy I am? This is my first time feeling your love for me. This is already enough for me. Stay happy with Dong'er. Whether she's Dong'er or Tang Wutong, she's your greatest love. I'm only a part of what you truly love. When I first transformed myself into her, I'd already lost. I can't beat her, ever. I love you, but she loves you more. You have a little crush for me, but your entire heart belongs to her. This is already the best result. Don't be as sad. This is the future. I'll be even sadder if you're like this. When you miss me, you can hug Wutong. If you're together with her, it'll be like you and I are together. You, me and her are no longer separable. Huo Yuhao was in a daze as he listened to Wang Qiu'er. He finally understood why Dong'er's martial soul experienced such a mutation, after she became Tang Wutong, and how she was able to use the golden spear. It turned out that Wang Qiu'er's strength was indeed in her body. Qiu'er, you've sacrificed too much for me. Wang Qiu'er smiled and said, before I sacrificed myself for you, weren't you willing to sacrifice your own life for me? Even though you were in despair then, I was still very satisfied. Yuhao, I love you. You must take care of yourself. Remember, I'm always by your side. I'm always here. As she spoke, she lifted her hand and gently caressed Huo Yuhao's eye of destiny, as well as his entire forehead. Yes. That was where the three-eyed golden lion's skull of destiny was. Dim gold separated from Tang Wutong's body, and refused into Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao only sensed an indescribable gentleness sweeping over him, relieving the pain and sorrow in his heart. Tang Wutong was still in his arms. She didn't get up. Huo Yuhao's tears also stopped flowing. Yes. Qiu'er has always been inside my body. Forever. Huo Yuhao's tears finally dried up, and he lowered his head to look at the person in his arms. He gently touched her long, wavy, pinkish-blue hair. Huo Yuhao finally called, Wutong. Tang Wutong lifted her head, and gave him a smile. I'm sorry. Huo Yuhao said softly. Tang Wutong glared at him. I need to punish you. What? Huo Yuhao was stunned. Warm, smooth red lips touched his own. That gentle touch and fragrance mixed with the love of Wang Dong'er, and Wang Qiu'er immediately reminded Huo Yuhao of everything. In the next instant, golden light shone brightly, and Huo Yuhao flew up. He drew a beautiful arc in the air. His flying-type soul tool opened up behind him. He poured out his soul power and managed to stabilize himself in the air. It seemed that Wang Dong'er still minded his relationship with Wang Qiu'er. However, he felt overwhelmingly ecstatic when he was kissed. At that instant, he could sense two different sets of love. He controlled his body in the air, and his eyes had already become clear by now. Tang Wutong gazed deeply at him. He chuckled and flew back beside Tang Wutong, holding her hands. The world of humans is indeed very complex. I didn't expect you to obtain the love of the Emperor Beast. The low-pitched voice from before let out a sigh. Do you believe me now? Huo Yuhao asked. The greatest pain and sorrow in his heart had been invoked, but he had managed to see Qiu'er. He finally understood everything. This wasn't just pain to him, it was an escape too. It made his spiritual awareness much clearer as well. Okay, so what are you here for? The voice asked. Huo Yuhao pondered for a moment before saying, I have a very important friend. She was affected by evil soul masters. She suffered critical injuries. Her martial soul is a blue-silver grass. If we want her to recover, she'll need your power. That's why I hope we can get a leaf from you. Of course, I won't take it for nothing. You can list your conditions. As long as I can fulfill them, I'll do my best. I only want to make an exchange. That low-pitched voice went silent for a moment. You are very strong. I can sense a lot of danger from your body. You also have the help of the Emperor Beast. You can defeat me easily and take me back. Why do you not do that? I swore I'd never attack a soul beast unless I'm trying to defend myself, Huo Yuhao replied sincerely. That's why I only want to make an exchange with you. The voice was astonished. As a human soul master, you actually swore not to kill soul beasts. Huo Yuhao nodded and said, yes. After I established spirits, I could avoid killing soul beasts to obtain their powers. He described what spirits were, and even released the star anise mysterious ice grass. The star anise mysterious ice grass was also a plant-type soul beast. It had the most acute senses when it came to other plant-type soul beasts. Indeed, the voice became much gentler after he saw the star anise mysterious ice grass and heard Huo Yuhao's story. Thanks for thinking for soul beasts. Just based on this, I think I can help you. However, As he spoke until here, he went silent for a bit. Huo Yuhao's heart tightened. He had finally found this blue-silver emperor. If he was unwilling, Huo Yuhao couldn't force him at all because of his vow. What should I do if that's the case? Teacher Xiao is still waiting for him to save her. If you have any difficulties, you can tell me. If possible, I'll do my best to help you. Although Huo Yuhao knew that he was being very rushed, he was aware that there was no room for mistakes. That low-pitched voice sighed and said, I've already lived in this world for 190,000 years. However, I'm still only a blue-silver grass. Even though I'm already an emperor, I still can't overcome the heavenly punishment that's about to come due to my innate abilities. That's why I'm about to die. Perhaps your plan can bring me new life. Huo Yuhao was delighted when heard this. However, he still asked. However, you can choose to be reborn. Can't soul beasts choose to be reborn when they reach a bottleneck? You are mistaken. That's only at the 100,000-year mark. After that, you can't take that path anymore if you don't choose to be reborn after a certain period of time. I'm already close to the 200,000-year stage. That's why I can't do it anymore. Perhaps some powerful soul beasts can think of another way. However, I can't do that, because of my own lineage. Huo Yuhao was only enlightened now. A blue-silver grass would still face problems with its lineage even if it became a blue-silver emperor. Under such a circumstance, it would be unable to be like the Snow Empress, able to be reborn even if its cultivation was very high. It sounded logical too. Given the Snow Empress talent as the Ice Sky Snow Lady and 700,000-year cultivation, she could only choose to be reborn as an embryo, which eventually led to a catastrophe. She eventually became Huo Yuhao's spirit. Compared to the Snow Empress, the Blue-Silver Emperor's cultivation was far inferior. Huo Yuhao said, as long as you are willing, it's not a problem. I can bring you back to fuse with my friend. Don't worry, my friend is incredibly talented. She's only 2 years older than me, but she already has 8 rings. If you can give her a 9th soul ring in the near future, I believe she'll become one of the strongest humans. All right, I shall trouble you then. The Blue-Silver Emperor said satisfactorily. At this moment, the blue-silver grass in the valley started to shake. They weren't fearful and hostile this time. Rather, they were excited and agitated. Huo Yuhao seemed to sense the presence of giant pythons slithering over from all directions. Blue vines started to rise up, and they eventually gathered together. Every vine appeared smooth and transparent. They were clear like blue crystals. However, there seemed to be veins inside these vines, and these veins seemed to be moving. The vines quickly wrapped around one another, and formed the appearance of a human. This human nodded at Huo Yuhao before moving towards him. It revolved around him and gradually adopted the entire form of a human. However, this human form wasn't the manifestation of a savage beast, but the product of vines twisting around one another. It was as if it had been woven. The originally thick vines also shrank too. They were only as thick as human thumbs now. It appeared very strange. "We'll follow you," the blue-silver emperor said. Huo Yuhao nodded at him and said, "Thanks for your trust." The blue-silver emperor pursed his lips and seemed to be smiling. "In fact, I believe in the emperor beast's taste. She can't be wrong." Tang Wutong was a little curious as she looked at the blue-silver emperor. Right now, she fully understood why Huo Yuhao was here. It was just that there was an extra special look in her eyes when she looked at the blue-silver emperor. Huo Yuhao nodded at the blue-silver emperor and said, "Please follow us then." He held Tang Wutong's hand and gradually flew out. At the same time, he extended his spiritual antenna towards the blue-silver emperor. At the start, the blue-silver emperor hesitated for a moment. However, he was soon very astonished, as he realized that Huo Yuhao's spiritual antenna contained spiritual undulations that belonged to plants. Even though he was only simulating it, it felt very close and kind. Subconsciously, the blue-silver emperor also released his spiritual power to connect with Huo Yuhao. As their spiritual senses connected, Huo Yuhao unleashed his spiritual detection and transmitted everything that he sensed to the blue-silver emperor. This video will end here.